Hi, my name is Zoe Andyke, and you're watching the Zen Disc Golf podcast.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Zen Disc Golf podcast. I am your host, Patrick McCormick, author of Zen and the Art of Disc Golf and Disc Golf Strategies and Tactics. On today's episode, I bring you one of the top FPO disc golfers and coaches in the game, Zoe Andyke. She is the founder of Universal Play, also known as Uplay Disc Golf, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting the health, well-being, and enhancement of communities by providing educational disc golf programs. Uplay Disc Golf's programs have reached more than 5,100 children ages 4 to 18. In this episode, Zoe and I chat about Uplay, what it takes to be a champion, and why balancing mental, physical, and spiritual health matter in life and on the course, and the value of following your passions. So without a further ado, I present the very talented and determined Zoe Andyke. Zoe, how are you this evening?
I'm great. It's fantastic to be your guest. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Oh, thanks. The honor's all mine. And I understand that you've taken a pause from the tour.
Yeah, actually, tonight I am in my home in Eugene, Oregon. This is where I found myself. I'm a native Oregonian, and over the last few years, I've lived in Eugene. So love it here. This is where we started our nonprofit, Universal Play Disc Golf. And yeah, right now I'm off tour until the beginning of May, and the full West Coast swing is going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to all of California and Oregon events. And in the meantime, just working hard. And I really enjoy the job and the tasks that I've set up for myself daily. So we'll talk more about that.
Isn't that wonderful when you love what you do? I mean, it's the old cliche of if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like when I tell people I'm working really hard, I'm like, and it's fun and it's so great. It's so satisfying, you know?
Very, very good. And I wanted to just say congratulations on placing at the St. Patrick's Classic.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was last weekend. That was a lot of fun. Did a quick little trip down to an H here in California. Obviously, it's Shady Oaks, St. Patty's Day. And I think that was the third time I've played that event. And I just love that course. It's crazy fun. And the weekend was just awesome. And US Women's is there this year, so it was a no-brainer, but also a last-minute decision that I was like, I should be playing this event. It's a great warm-up for US Women's.
Yeah, well, you warmed up right up into second place, huh?
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. So you're on the show because I guess a friend of yours and a follower of mine, John Bongiorno, I hope I said his name right. He recommended you join the show. And of course, it's an honor to have you on, being one of the greatest players of disc golf today. But once I began looking into Uplay, I thought this is a perfect show for us to have. I love having people who are out there growing the sport and working with kids and doing and growing it from every different angle. I love talking to people like that. So you're just multifaceted, and I think this is going to make for a great show.
Wow, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. So let's talk about you first, and then I really want to delve deep into Uplay, Universal Play Disc Golf. Let's talk about you. Tell me your disc golf story. How did you get started playing? And at one point, did you say, this is what I'm going to do with my life?
Oh, this is a cute little quick story. Almost 17 years ago, I started playing in a small town where I was born and raised in La Grande, Oregon, northeastern Oregon. And I actually thought it was kind of a secret backyard game that a few of my college buddies at Eastern Oregon University would just go up in the mountains to this guy's property and aim at trees and try to hit them with frisbees. And or actually it was tone poles that he had, and we would extend the course to trees. And so I thought disc golf literally was like a made up game among my friends. Then I shortly after, and I thought it was kind of fun. You know, it was all right. I'll always being an athlete and competing in different sports. I thought, this is a fun little backyard game. And then I moved to Bend, Oregon. The course doesn't any longer exist, but Central Oregon Community College had a little 9-hole course with like Mach 5 or Mach 3s probably. And I looked at a basket for the first time when we moved there, and I was like, what is that?
Nice.
Yeah, actually the guy I was dating at the time, my first boyfriend who got me into disc golf, Alan Gorthy, he's like, Zoe, that's a disc golf basket, that's a target. And I was like, wait, this is a real like organized game. And it was on from there. Because I quickly learned about the local club. The Central Oregon Rebels became my first club. At that time, they were called the Rebels. Then I played, like, I was the weekend warrior. That was Bend, Oregon was my first teaching job. So I was a PE teacher, activities coordinator for a girls' boarding school. And I was playing all the weekend events. I think Whistler's Bend was my very first sanctioned event. And for anyone out there who's ever traveled through Oregon and played Whistler's, they're gonna be like, wow, that was her first like amateur event. And my local club members started me off playing advanced women. I didn't know, and I didn't even know what divisions would be offered. So Tori Tuft was actually like, yeah, just sign up as advanced. And I think I took 4th place out of 4 women that weekend in 2007. And it was still on from there. Like, the rest is history. I played AM for a few years, moved up to Alaska and back. And then I got back in 2011, at the end of 2011, from that whole living experience that was amazing. And I was like, I'm gonna go play pro. I'm gonna try to tour and play the pro tour for 1 year. And that was 2012. Kicked it off with the Memorial, which was one of the super tour or national tour events then. And that the rest is history. I told everyone I was going to try it for 1 year, and now it's 2021. And minus taking a year off and stuff like that, this will be my 9th year playing tour events. And an incredible story later. Tons of amazing support and sponsors, and ways that I've tied in my past career and professional skills with what I do in the professional world of disc golf and all things disc golf is just like kind of a fairy tale.
Sounds like it. And I can tell on your face that you're loving it.
Yeah. Disc golf, literally, I said it earlier in my round today. Got to play a practice round with Dustin, and one of my favorite people on the planet, one of my advisors, his name's Marshall Peter, and he's an incredible 71-year-old disc golf player. And I think I was on hole 3 on the green, and I made a bid and did not cash in on a huge birdie, but I just said, my heart still just beats as fast. Disc golf makes me breathe and my heart tick and beat. It's just such a wonderful thing to be doing with your time.
It is. It's like no other sport, and it's so hard to talk to people who are outside the glass. You know what I'm saying? To say how much joy that it has the possibility of bringing to people. And when people are looking in from the outside and they see people doing their in the bag, and they're like, oh, this beautiful circle I have, it's been with me forever. And they're like, all right, are they talking about Frisbees? And even when I step back and I look at myself doing the same thing, and I'm like, I'm funny. This is absolutely hilarious.
Disc golfers get so far into it. We're on another level of in a good way, being obsessed with or having a passion for a hobby or a project or a sport that we love so much.
Absolutely. So were you a PE teacher when you decided to go pro, or were you doing something else when in between?
So no, I did that for 4 years at the Academy at Sisters. And then I had a really unique and incredible opportunity to move up to Alaska. A past roommate from college and from Eastern Oregon lived in Anchorage and came to Eastern Oregon for college, but was from not Juneau, but Nome, Alaska, Jamie Adams. Anyway, so it's the woman I started playing disc golf with in Eastern Oregon invited me to live up there when I was like, I could go this direction or this direction with my teaching path. And I loved my job, but I was like, I guess I always, something inside of me couldn't ever put words around. I knew I was meant for a little bit more.
Yeah.
And teaching is my gift, but I needed to be able to reach and teach more people. And I've always known that. I just didn't know it would be through disc golf, honestly. So that's cool. But so I moved up to Alaska, and I was doing a lot of really cool adventure jobs, fly fishing lodges, managed a boys and girls club, taught swimming, tons of things. Got to experience volunteering and doing the Iditarod for 2 different years. I did the start,
Wow.
finish. Yeah, a lot of really neat experiences. And then I taught my very first disc golf clinic right before I moved out of Anchorage. There's a little tiny downtown nine hole course in Anchorage called Westchester Lagoon. And it's just a super funny thing. I had like 32 people show up to that clinic, and there was a lot of women. There was men and women. And one of the last things I told everyone, and I gave a really great quick little presentation on how to throw a drive and how to throw a putt. And it was like, one of the very first things like that I'd ever tried to do with disc golf. And I told everyone I was leaving and to wish me luck. I was moving back to the lower 48, and I was going to go on the pro tour. And yeah, again, like I still have deep roots in family, like disc golf family all over Alaska, and continue to try to prioritize getting back there and teaching. And so at some point in this podcast, I have like something really cool to share about one of Uplay's projects and missions for this year back up in Alaska, but
Great.
I don't want to get into that can of worms and birdies yet.
Great.
So I moved back from Alaska, and I decided to play the pro tour. And what's really funny is driving, like watching a disc fly really far initially is what totally hooked me. I was the 2018 world putting champion, but the really funny part of that story is that I didn't like putting. I would almost use the hate word for like 8 years, like from am into the first couple of years in pro. Putting actually used to frustrate me so bad that I had this attitude that I would never become good at putting. I would just be better at parking a disc under the basket or something.
The best putt is not to putt at all.
Yeah, right. Not funny to even think about those thoughts, because I speak putting. I eat and dream and breathe putting. Like I love putting. It's one of my best classes you can take from me, or my putting mantra or rhythm and routine are separate than my driving, and both are unique and wonderful and different. But it's funny how much I love putting nowadays.
So when you were making that transition from hating it to loving it, was there something that clicked in you that said, all right, I know this, I hate this skill, so this is what I need to do more?
Yeah. So that one was pretty easy. Kind of one of those no-brainer. I like math and dollars and making sense out of my dollars. And once I was putting an incredible amount of money of my own to travel and play these tour events, and sometimes not cash, and sometimes, so actually literally from the first year on, go negative dollars or go backwards. And when you can equate it down to the entire experience being more enjoyable if you're making putts, from your scorecard to the way you placed to cashing, it was a no-brainer from the magical and the fun level of the experience, like the cartoon side of the way my brain works. Like I'm always focused on maximizing fun, and every time you make a putt, you're having amplified fun. And then there's this whole piece to when your scorecard's better, you place better. And I'm uber competitive and sports minded, and always like trying to strive to be at the top of the podium finish in anything I'm doing. So making the decision to focus on being a better putter finally became a no-brainer aha moment. It's funny that I didn't start that way though. I was a little bit stubborn. Like I said, I fell in love with the drive, man, the drive for show.
It's so funny that you say that. In my first book, I while you were saying that, I just got to thinking about this, and I never thought about this before. But in my first book, I pretty much open it by saying, once you hear those chains, you're hooked. And then at the end of the book, I say, so yeah, that's your putting. At the end of the book, I say, chasing that perfect flight is what keeps people, coming back to the course. So
Yeah.
basically just said it, just Chasing the perfect
Opposite.
fly. Yeah. But that's
And
really
now,
cool. Those are the bookends and everything else is in between.
yep, that's exactly right. Oh man, I love that so much. And even in the way I teach now, it really, the foundation, all the fundamental skills to help you through disc golf starts with putting. Without nerding out like a teacher, it all does start with putting and then moves into driving, and like translating the skills from a short throw to a longer throw, and the progression of it makes perfect sense. It's just so funny that I went in backwards order.
Yeah. Let's talk about Uplay Disc Golf, and let's get started talking about that. So you founded it in 2017, and what was the spawn? I mean, what the impetus of this creation of Uplay?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, teaching and speaking, motivational speaking, are really, unique and great skill sets that I happen to have, and creativity and just power of positive thinking and team building. Those are all really strong suits of Zoe Andyke's. And after being on the tour for the first year, you get kind of beat up out there on tour, and not just not meaning like in the sense of not placing well, but for me, and I think this would be the same for like any touring athlete or like a musician or person in touring in a profession. Um, it's a very self-driven type of venture. When you're touring, you've got to do your best to survive and take care of yourself. And I've always been a really selfless and giving and coaching and teaching and kind of giving type of person. And so I found that my disc golf, my like love and bright candle burning, was kind of dimming down because it was becoming too selfish, and I needed to give, and I saw a huge lack, not only in my life for being able to positively affect others, because that's what I like to do, coach, teach, but in the game of disc golf, huge lack. Here's everybody trying back then to start a new company in clothing or disc manufacturer or this or that, which is great, all those things. I'm glad for all those companies, but I clear back then was like, man, nobody's teaching, and nobody's teaching quality material. There's still a huge lack of that, and I took it very, very seriously. And I'm the kind of person that doesn't always know how I'm gonna get somewhere, but then I dream in way larger scales, and then kind of naturally I feel like there's a lot of angels that have my back. There's a lot of amazing people that see my energy and my focus, and they get put in front of me and want to help me. And the nonprofit all organically gets built through my desire to have quality, good disc golf and to grow it properly. And I thought, well, what better way than just like I would do, teach a bunch of kids, the kids are the way to the future. And that's always kind of what I've known growing up as a child. I think I had some good teaching and coaching that said it's always about the next generation. It's always about the next generation. And so, I didn't even know what the word nonprofit was. I worked for the Academy at Sisters, was a huge nonprofit, a girls' boarding school for at-risk behavioral youth. So this is a nonprofit I worked for 4 years as a teacher, and that word didn't really. I understood we had a board of directors, and I understood there was all kinds of committees and meetings, and then I understood the employee side of it because that's what I was. But now that I'm full-fledged in it and decided to start one, I really didn't know what a nonprofit was. And every day I'm learning so much more. And that adventure wasn't necessarily anything I was signing up for, but it's been incredibly interesting, that's for sure. And I think one of the most important things that I can wrap like a lifelong worth of you listening to me talk is that building a nonprofit all has to do with collective impact. And I've taken that those two words, and I've taken seminars on it, further education on what it means to grow partnerships and what it means to collectively come together with other entities that have similar goals or even if they're not even in the same realm, if they have a skill and you have a skill and you can match it. I've got a lot of new network training on that kind of stuff, learning how to build a nonprofit. And with who I am and in my teaching, this just is a big, huge mix of, I think, a really important thing that disc golf was lacking. And some of my heroes, you know, there is education in disc golf, you know, Edge, Jay and Des Redding, for different reasons and some of the same reasons, have been some of my heroes since the very beginning. I could name off a lot of other teachers, but what Uplay is something different. It's something live, and it's hand holding, it's energetic, it's active. It's my curriculum from the very first, you know, from your toe all the way up to like the hair on your head, what we're trying to accomplish. And it's taken me 6 years of collection and hours and writing and rewriting and teaching and reteaching. And then it's taken me 1 full year of writing. Thank goodness the pandemic, not really, thank goodness the pandemic, but thank goodness somebody was able to hit the pause button on how fast and how many things I've been trying to do to grow Uplay. And with the help of Dustin Keegan and Val Jenkins, who's, you know, she's a lifelonger in my life. She's a board member, but she's a lifelong.
Yeah, I was going to say you have a monster board.
Oh yeah. And they're incredible, man. My board's rating world titles, professional titles, who they are on the world to who they are in disc golf, really, really high rated board. But yeah, so we finally wrote the curriculum and it's super, super close to being released. And it's a funny thing that it took this long, but at the same time, I'm glad that I got to it in my lifetime, because I'm so busy trying to help and teach and do so many things that it's time to give it all out there and make rapid fire like tons and tons and tons of people. Now it's not like I can sell you my curriculum and give you all my energy, but I think it's so well written, and it has everything that you could possibly need to be able to like be excited and teach really, really good disc golf. And actually it's kind of foolproof as far as safety and dummy proof. I'm going to get really close to the camera because safety is like my number one focus, and I want to share my first teaching in a school story. So right here is a little scar. I don't know if you can see it.
All right. We can zoom in on it on editing.
Okay, well, that is from the edge of like, I don't know, probably some kind of like DX Valkyrie or something.
Wow.
But 2013, I'm just north on I-5 in a town called Corvallis, Oregon. OSU is located there. We're teaching at an elementary school, the first one ever. Me and Dustin, and then a friend, his daughter went to school there, so he set the whole thing up. And I'm on like my 3rd class, and I'm following all my safety rules. But like, here's me. You would be the direction of the basket. Here's the kid. Here's Dustin on that side. All the kids are lined up behind. So we're just on a parallel plane. Well, she's throwing it so good. And I say, okay, 2nd try. Now just reach back a little further with your whole body. And so she does, and she rips it. And I'm like hands down on knees, head height. And she just held on, you know, 75, or, you know, 270 degrees instead of 180 degrees. And my face just was right there to catch it 5 feet away. And even though it was a beautiful, awesome, talented 1st grade little girl, splat, there goes my lip apart. And I look up at Dustin, and I don't really know how bad it is, but he can see my like fang vampire teeth, you know. I'm like, oh, good shot. Dustin's going to take over from here. And I run in the bathroom, and the rest is really funny history. You know, it's even another funny story, but I take safety so seriously that I make it kind of cute little magical features all throughout the way I teach as well, because my first experience like connected me to, in every teaching environment and in every experience, have damage control first and foremost. When you're
did you have to sew it back up, or was it complete?
Oh yeah, there was 5 stitches, and I wasn't allowed to talk or smile or eat anything without a straw for 5 days. And that might've been the hardest thing ever. I ended up eventually manipulating talking by holding it together. And I ended up manipulating other things. But yeah, that's a funny piece of the disc golf career. Whale Sax, Tina.
Yes.
I've been a sponsored player by her, but she's a friend, a lifelong friend as well. And back in the day when she's getting going, I'm on the first team Whale Sax ever. And Tina sends me with some Whale Sax, a package of bandages with mustaches, at least 10 to 12 different molds of mustaches, and it's off-centered. So I always had, kind of this off-centered mustache on the course. And it was really hard when I made like top card and everyone's uber serious. It was hard for some of my buddies out there on the course to take me seriously, but here I am like ice in the veins.
You're getting in their heads though. You're getting in their heads. You're getting up to make those putts and you got that mustache. Like I can't do it.
It's such a cute piece of the chapter book. But yeah, safety and that whole piece and the scar all tell a story that again make me incredibly proud of some of my experiences, and then how I've conducted and even taught and written about it in the future, So yeah, Uplay just is a collection of hundreds and thousands of hours of my life being put into giving the gift of disc golf, and then kind of reproving how to myself, and relearning, inviting other educators in, other pros, other types of teachers that don't even play. And then the projects that we do, the places that we teach, and all the different little programs that we have. So it's a creation.
Wonderful.
It's how can you do the best at what you're doing and provide the best service. So when maybe I can compare it to a boys and girls club, or an after school program running different types of sporting programs. Okay. Well, Uplay can run different types of ways to interact with you and help you access disc golf, teach you disc golf, get you out there playing disc golf. Cause we have a whole women's, we started it with kind of women's leagues and trying to grow the women's game separate from the kids game and the youth. And then that all took off into different ways that you could coach and teach and involve your communities. And so we can creatively design programs year by year with Uplay, now that we have like a couple of different specific product molds. So products being, let's teach it just like we're going to teach it in a school. Let's teach our communities how to, first of all, get it, grow it, build it, and continue to run it. And then let's teach it, if you want to take it all the way in the game status, and now out of schools and families and like growing community stuff. If you want to go to the next level, potentially become a world champion, all the way down to an amateur champion in any kind of competition, you can teach that way too. There's just unending ways to run a program and teach about disc golf. So Uplay is like a limitless or an infinite and partnered and sponsored, by Infinite, actual nonprofit. And I want to talk about Infinite really quick because their support is so incredibly unique and so incredibly wonderful. I finally found my home forever personally as a sponsored player with Infinite Zoe Andyke brand. And then naturally, they took an interest in some of the projects we were doing. And on an annual basis, they want to continue to find, after we present a strategic plan, ways to support. So something Infinite has coached me as a player and as a director is that you would also never want to cap off or limit any kinds of opportunities or ways to connect or ways to teach. And so the fact that they're a manufacturer themselves, but they have a line, but that they sell everybody's discs was a no-brainer for me, because I want to be able to talk about every single line and give everybody their own options. And not to mention the fact that when schools or different groups that need resourced with a bulk product for whatever they're doing, whether they're teaching or they're running an event or this or that, I like giving the entire field a fair analysis, because if you want something for a bunch of professionals or for a bunch of brand new players, there are all of the options across the board. And Infinite encourages me and actually gets really excited when I talk about as many manufacturers as possible, especially the underdogs that are able to resource schools or churches or women's groups or leagues with much cheaper plastic that can still be premium, so
Right.
some of those underdog companies are some of my favorites. And then, I'm going to kind of switch back to out of Uplay into the personal Zoe. They let me put my name on their signature mold. It's a fairway driver called the Sphinx.
Nice.
And then the story that unfolds with the next disc I'm going to show you is they had their own artwork for it. And they obviously, because I'm the player that gets to have my artwork on this mold and it's my mold, they let me have the creative space to design. And so I reached out to the best in the game, the best in the best. And I reached out to Thought Space Athletics, and they do work for a lot of people. And I actually personally met Aaron, who's one of the two amazing geniuses behind the artwork, at a pro tour event early last year in 2020. The one that I went to was the memorial before the pandemic. So I meet Aaron, I reach out, he helps me with this beautiful art. It comes out, the Sphinx is actually not only like eye candy and something beautiful to look at, it's one of the best molds for brand new players all the way up to MPOs. Like, this disc is for everybody, and it makes your bag better. And like, I mean that, and I can stand behind it. And it's like amazing that not only is this sponsor, like, we infinitely want you to support Network Teach, I accidentally get my name and my love behind a disc that is literally infinitely for every player. And I'm like, this is like stupid how good this is, how amazing this love is. And then the second disc I'm going to bring up, this is a personal thing, but again, a huge supporter of Uplay and of everything, all projects that I'm into. Thought Space got in touch with Infinite before me on my behalf and said, hey, we want to put Zoe on a disc. We love her. We have a Thought Space glow mantra coming out. We want to call it the Glowy Andyke. And I was like, oh, Glowy Zoe Andyke, that's so cute. And so quick story, and this is going to relate and be a teaching moment for the podcast as well.
Great.
The mantra, he's got all these other mind-blowing, amazing stamps for the mantra mold itself, but then had to interview me with his partner and say, hey, what do you think of when you think of a mantra? I got to design your stamp. And so I did two things. I described to him my steps of getting into meditation, because meditation is like a newer piece to my life. I don't know, in the last 3 years, I've been able to, or 2.5, 3 years, I've been able to kind of study a little bit. And then I described to him my putting rhythm and routine again, because it's just like a quick checklist. And I didn't even get into my driving one. So I went into my meditation practice and I went into my putting mantra rhythm and routine, and he drew this. And I hope that the glare, it doesn't suck, but this woman, she's a beautiful figure. First of all, I love all the geometric designs, the color, the triple foil stamp. She's levitating. There's amazing kind of, whether you call it smoke or spirit or amazing, like, I guess you would say creative thought bubbles that are lingering, in the heart space is open, and the mind is just, trying to be gathered, but in a creative space. I can't believe how cool this stamp is. Yeah. So sorry, I nerded out there for a minute.
Please nerd out. I love it when my guests nerd out. It's great.
It's personal. It's for everyone. This disc, actually in the air, we originally thought would be a little more. So this is a 9. The numbers are on the Sphinx are 9, -3, 9, 6, -3, 1. And they had this at 9, 6, -2, 1, but really not the case. I think that the mantra is a little bit closer, and Aaron and I are working with getting the numbers right. I thought it would be a more stable than the Sphinx, because that does just all these amazing, like, understable lines. And it's not. Like, glow plastic tends to be more overstable. This is flippier, and it pulls off like do-it-yourself rollers and pop it up in the air and hold the Annie line and pan for days. And that's like a disc everybody wants in their bag. And if your arm speed is pretty slow, this is going to perform like S's and different things like that for you. So I would say, top percentile of like the MPO field probably wouldn't throw this disc unless they were going to do really fun trick shots on the camera for it. But this disc is for everyone else. And then again, like I said, this one's just got another click of it. Both of the glides being 6 is totally correct. And I don't, for those of you that are not disc golf flight number junkies, a glide 6 is kind of just like a no-brainer as far as like, I mean, if you had an electric car that also is gas and you ran out of gas, you can still keep going for days.
That's a great metaphor. I love that.
Yeah, these guys are going to go for days. They've got some of the old technology and the new technology inside of them that makes them glide in the air longer. So that's fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. And you hit the nail on the head. Thought Space is definitely the best in the business as far as artwork goes. And that is a beautiful disc. I love it. I don't know if you know this, but Infinite Discs was hugely supportive of me when I first got started too.
Yeah.
And I was a huge supporter of Infinite and still am. But yeah, Alan Barker was the first person on our podcast, episode 1, season
Oh
1.
my gosh. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Yes. In 2015-ish.
No
And
way.
talking way at the beginning of Infinite and all of this. So
I got to go back and find that. That's like, what a special, thank you for sharing that and connecting those dots. And Alan's kind of one of my heroes in different ways. Like I have a lot of heroes and Alan's just a really, really classy character that like gets business and is a really like good-hearted, loving dude.
yeah, and to be honest with you, when I got started with, I don't remember how our relationship began, but I can tell you honestly, Infinite was not the company that they are today. They've grown massively, I guess, since 2015.
Oh
But
yeah.
basically, he was growing, and I know the website had been up, but it hadn't been up very long. And somehow I found out about him, and I reached out to him and I said, here, my book stuff is taking off. And I'm going to start this podcast. And my Instagram at the time was one of the biggest Instagrams on related to disc golf that there was, underneath, pro players, I believe. But anyways, I hit the, 10,000s way, way, way early before. And so I think he took a look at that and we kind of merged and created a relationship. And he actually, for all of my early giveaways, he gave the disc away. Like I didn't even pay for it. Like basically,
Oh
I want to
wow.
say it was once a week. I gave away a disc and it was funded by Alan Barker, who I never touched the disc. He sent the disc on our behalf and we grew together. And that's why he was number 1 on our podcast, episode 1. Yeah, it's on YouTube. You can find it.
That is so cool. He's a good man, and Infinite is a quality company. Um, I think one of my really important qualities and things I've been taught in business and in life is you can't thank people enough. And I really love doing creative thank yous for the Infinite crew and for Alan because he does so much for the world in disc golf. He's a
I
good.
definitely can't thank him enough because I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for him basically funding all of my early giveaways.
That's
So
so
much
cool.
appreciated. And
Yeah.
then I guess as a sort of what do you call it, like a product ambassador, very early with Infinite, he sent me an entire bag of discs. He said, pick out $200 worth of stuff and send it to me. And so, of course, that's when. So, I mean, and I talked to him probably twice a week for over a year via, email and all. So I just wanted to point that out. Um, I do have I do want to say something because it hit me while you were talking
Mhm.
about Uplay, and I love this virtue that certain people have that you have. They see something, they dream something, they don't know the roadmap to get there, but they're not afraid to take the first step. And I love that. It's like, when I decided I was going to write a book, I had no idea any of this stuff. When I decided I was going to bring the podcast back, I had no idea who would want to be on. And then it filled up like 4 months in advance. And I'm like, okay, but it's the initial thought, it's the initial dream. How do I get there? Don't worry about it. Just worry about tomorrow. And I that's what it sounded like you were saying to me about Uplay.
Yeah. Yeah, and okay, so for anything in any adventure, whether you know what you're doing or not, one foot in front of the other is probably the best method because yeah, that's just good. But with Uplay, I have too much spirit, so much energy. And man, I just really love this whole idea of teaching and giving. And so I think you have to run with stuff when you're passionate. I kind of forget sometimes that not everybody thinks the same as me or feels the same as me about my policies in life and in the world. And Dustin always laughs when I say that. I'm like, oh wait, I thought everybody does that. But the more I get into this and really take it seriously into the next level, I really appreciate you saying that, and I really appreciate you pointing that out. And this is this has been hard. Of course it's fun, and I'm giving you guys like the authentic Zoe. Like I'm a really happy camper, really happy puppy, but I also um because there's no roadmap, there's been a lot of like really hard times when many hard times when I've taken really large steps back to take large steps forward. And when I say that, when your passion project and what you love to do, what you're trying to work in, what you spend your exercise, a lot of your exercise doing, and I could keep naming it off, but each really important category of life, actually you write the same two words: disc golf, disc golf, disc golf, disc golf. Sometimes the waters kind of merged and got mucky because it would be really hard to find different moments of just my own for me, or where the next direction was, because there's nothing like this written or done before, and it's just made me rise to the next level of networking and finding the right advisors or advisement, and a lot of the people that I take a lot of coaching from, well, some of them don't even know about a lot about the professional touring world, but then there's some that are retired from multiple world titles, and it's just been a really interesting adventure. And so I think that I'm really thankful that you brought it up. And my coaching to anyone out there is that if you had a passion project, no matter what you have to do to work or survive or get through school, don't let it go. Just actually do whatever your gut tells you to give a try or research or pick up the phone or do first. Because I've never doubted my gut, and my gut, I believe in my goals and my heart's desires, and my gut doesn't lead me the wrong way. So if it's in there, you can trust yourself. If you've got a good idea, just run with it. There's always going to be perimeters on boundaries of like safety, and you have to make money to survive and live. So make sure you take care of your living and your life. But in passion projects, for anyone listening, go ahead and go with your gut, because you're not going to miss, and you started at nothing, so you're at least going to have something.
Yeah, the barrier for most people getting started is that first step, because they're so afraid of everything in between where they are now and whatever they want. And you can look at this in all aspects of life, from career to passion projects, or even like fitness. I know you're familiar with Seth Muncie. We were talking about this earlier on the podcast that I did with him. And, a lot of people won't work out because that first step is scary. They won't get into fitness because they're not exactly sure what to do. And that will stop them from doing anything fitness related forever.
Yeah,
Instead of
absolutely.
instead of just starting where you are.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, good point. And Seth has been my coach. We're on our fourth year now. We're well into the fourth year. Dustin and I became part of his inaugural like team, pro sponsored team in disc golf. And I've been a speaker on a bunch of his performance academies. I check into an app with him every day. He loads me workouts throughout the season that change. And I have to say that Disc Golf Strong has changed my life in a physical manner, and the professional, amazing coaching skills that Seth has. I mean, we're talking outside of the world of disc golf. The coach that he is has enhanced my life, and anything you can get your hands on and do, or if you want to take the challenge, it's really, really minimal expense of doing the Disc Golf Strong Performance Academy, your life will improve. Of course, your physical skills will, if you put your time in and all that kind of stuff. But There's a lot of, I talked about weaving safety and other, just dummy proofing the gym throughout my curriculum. But Seth has like enhanced all of the secret little motivations inside of the way he coaches. And so it's so uplifting. It's like spiritually uplifting to be a part of Seth's coaching,
That's
So,
amazing. I signed up for the waiting list actually today. And
yay, that's cool.
I'm excited to get into it. Well, I've got to be involved in just about everything that I can, even if it's remotely through disc golf. So, and because Seth and I hit it off so well on the last podcast, he's committed to being on several podcasts throughout the year. So we can, because that podcast could have been 3 hours long. And I'm like, all right, dude,
Yeah.
I got to go to work tomorrow.
I
So
can only imagine our conversations go long. And when he lets me come and join the Disc Golf Strong Academy, it's funny, like he doesn't really get an edge in word wise because I say so much, but then when he does, we bounce off each other so well. I mean, two great coaches in two different realms in the same room. It's hard to cap it. You can do multiple episodes. And actually, I told him I was going to be on this on this podcast, and he was like, "Oh, well, what's your focus going to be? Because you're so many things. What are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about Uplay? Are you going to talk about the way you teach, your story?" And I was like, I think he thinks he's going to get a mix of everything. And so far we've touched on a lot of things, but again, open invite to get deep in the mind of one category. That'd be a fun challenge.
yeah, you should go back and ask him exactly what did you talk about with Pat? And he'll be
Yeah,
like,
I
well,
should.
we kind of spanned everything. So yeah, I mean, and that's how I like it, just keep it going and keep it flowing. But yeah, he's committed to come on so that we can actually narrow some of the topics that we were talking about. We mentioned maybe talking and spending a whole podcast talking about mobility and a whole podcast talking about strength training and another one about stretching and things like that. So I'm going to hook up with him sometime in the very near future and schedule him out for a couple months. So he should be back. He did tell me he would come back.
That's cool. Yep. That's excellent. Yeah. I love Seth. That's again, one of the most incredible gifts of in my life right now. I can say sponsored athlete, team, lucky to be on the team, all the above. I feel like what I get with my relationship and with my coach and in my disc golf strong training is definitely like one of the things that's kept me strong enough to even maintain this whole building process of a nonprofit. It's body, mind, and spirit. And if you're not taking care of body or mind or spirit, something's going to crumble eventually. And I think in this process, another very personal thing I could share of the building and the hard times are, it's obvious when I'm letting one of those big slices of the pie slip. So there have been times, it's not like I've been perfectly checked into all my workouts in 4 years. There have been times where there was a month or 8 weeks or usually I think there's been 2 different holiday breaks where I slipped a little in December. And that's funny because everybody's trying so hard to fight the holidays and whatever. Anyway, so when I get off that horse and the body is not being taken care of, the physical body, it leaks into the other 2 categories and it leaks into what you're trying to accomplish. And really it just makes everything harder. And so again, another little teaching moment from me to all of your listeners is that you have to have balance in a way of mind, body, and spirit, because you can't fight the inevitable. And if you try, you're just going to make things harder. And then that makes it,
And another key is don't beat yourself up when it happens, because it will happen.
Yeah, it will.
So just get right back on it, start where you are, and keep on trucking. Because
remember the facts.
because I wrote about, that was a big portion of my first book, the disc golf, Zen and the Art of Disc Golf, was combining that triangle of mind, body, and spirit, and how disc golf is such a well-balanced pyramid of all those things that you're able to do that. And then I fell into some life difficulties after my podcast ended. And you want to talk about fell off. I really fell off. Of course, I was injured pretty badly, but there were a lot of other stuff going on in life. And I really fell off. And there is a sort of there's a sort of embarrassment and shame that kind of comes from that. And I had to get over that in my own life before I could come back and talk to you and talk to my listeners, um, because I was not living what I had preached. I fell off the wagon completely. But you know what got me back?
Yeah, please share. Disc golf.
Putting the pyramid back together.
You said disc golf.
100% disc golf. Let me tell you, Zoe, I don't even care how long this podcast goes, because I'm going to tell this story. When the book was dropped, and I started the podcast, I was so passionate about disc golf, so passionate. Well, I mean, I wrote a book about it. I spent every day on the courses. This was before I had a child, so that's a big factor in it. But I played just about every day, and I know Seth would say don't play every single day, but I was trying to play, like 3 rounds a day every single day because I lived real close to a course. Wrote the book. It took off. I'm very surprised to this day about the success of the book. I'm very, very thankful, grace of God, because it has helped me keep my family afloat through hard times. But I decided at that time that there were some other things happening, but we needed to move. And I decided I was going to buy a large piece of land and build my own disc golf course. And I began that process. We moved. I bought 17 acres so I can put 18-hole course on it. And I move in day, I was pretty much out in the woods with a chainsaw. And my wife didn't see me probably for 3 months. I was going to work, working 24 hours, coming back. I'd come in for grab a sandwich and then go out to the woods. So that's when my balance started to fall apart, because now being alone in the woods was more important than anything else, than career, than God, than family, and everything just kind of began to fall apart. And what ended up happening was, I was headed home to go from work to go cut on fairway number 5 or whatever it was, just day after day. I was coming home after 24-hour shift, and I got nailed by a dump truck on the interstate. So I lost control of my truck. I talked a lot about it in episode 1 on the comeback, but I lost control of my truck, and I got hit by a dump truck, and it put me out of commission. Oddly enough, there was a head injury involved, but it took my throwing hand out of commission, because it broke this wonky finger. That's what I call it, which, believe it or not, that's all I got. So I couldn't throw. I couldn't throw. I had to go to physical therapy for months. And when I got back, just trying to throw those short putts hurt so bad. And I still don't have my throwback because this jacked up my forehand grip, and I get drag on my on my backhand grip.
Yeah.
So all of that began my tumble. And then there were a lot of other stuff going on. My son was diagnosed with autism, which, just takes a ton of energy. But in the beginning, it all started with my pyramid tumbling because I was thinking too much about me and disc golf, disc golf, disc golf, disc golf, and then I fell off. And there were a lot of things that kind of happened with that. So push comes to shove, I was so attached to this property. I only got about 9 holes in, but I had to stop after all that. And I stopped playing for like a year, maybe even, I don't think I picked up my bag for a year, maybe a year and a half. And my wife comes to me and she says, we need to move. We were living very rurally. We need to move because Bryce can't get that's my son. He cannot get the his needs taken care of in this rural area that we're in. So we had to move to more of a metropolitan or suburban kind of area. And I was always like, no, it's not going to happen. I've put too much work into this property. No, 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 no. And then at the end of the day, I was like, well, either I move with them or they're going to move and leave me here. And that's not going to be good either.
Right.
And so, I said, all right, let's talk about it, and push comes to shove, we ended up moving to Williamsburg, Virginia, and I am now central between in my opinion, three of the best courses around within 20 minutes from where I live. And I don't have to take care of them, So all of my work was going into those courses. So long story short, when I had my own course, I never played. I never played because it was either because I got hurt. Because I got hurt early on. I was trying to build it and maintain it, and just one person doing that where I was just an incredible amount of work. And then I got hurt and I didn't play. So I move away from the course. So sometimes, and this is a really good segue for you because I know you're going to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to sacrifice everything to put it all back together.
Yes.
And so I come back here, I go back out, I throw my uncle, he lives nearby. He's also a disc golfer. He goes, "Hey, Pat, why don't we go throw today?" And I was still not in a very good mental space. I just left my baby. I left my dream home and all my property to go live on a cul-de-sac. And I just was not happy about that. Okay, let's go throw. So we go throw. I play horribly. And I say, this is what I've been missing. This is it. This is what I've been missing.
Yes.
And then I go out the next week and then, I'm putting things back together and more buddies are calling me up and say, "Hey, let's go play. Let's go do this." We started playing at work again and just things started coming back together to make that triangle. So that was a super long story just to give you an example about how when some of the pieces fall apart, it all falls apart and you all crumble, but
I'm so glad
get
you
back together.
shared that. That was it was such a very, very good. And thank you for the giving the bigger detail of it all too, because it's life is delicate and we can't plan for anything but what we want. And I mean, if you're planning for what you don't want, that's a different conversation. But all we can do is try our hardest and plan for what we want. And it's never going to always be that way. And when you just said you kind of have to let it all go just to put it back together and take the next steps, I've hit that point multiple times, mostly in the past year and a half. And I of course, everybody's had pandemic, different personal mental stresses and things that they've had to get through personally and things like that. I think the pandemic has caused a lot of emotional high rises and crazy times for depression and things like that. But I wouldn't say I suffered all of those things necessarily the way that we hear about it on the news. But I would say that I was cut off from being able to network and do so many of the things I was doing. Nothing made sense for a few minutes, and I had to tear down the walls and really, really kind of had some fall off myself of different categories I was taking care of, and then putting it all back together to try again, and I feel like I'm the best version of myself now because I'm more proud of everything that I have done and really more proud of everything that I'm doing. I can hear differences in conversations, business conversations. People want to get involved and ask what they can do versus me begging and pleading for them to care about what I'm doing. And those are really high marks of it's all been worth it. And the rest of the journey is going to be entirely more colorful. The facts are that the ride's going like this and it's really fun, it's or like this, whichever, whether you want to be on an uphill slope or a downhill slope. I think slopes are fun, so I'm enjoying my ride.
That's a really good metaphor. I love that. If you loved it, roller coasters are fun, but it's the uphill and the downhill.
Yeah, and
can't have one without the other.
Seth got me through some hard times with something that I've recycled a bunch, and that's the peaks and the valleys talk. And the view is beautiful on the peaks. But you have to travel down to, and there's parts of the valley that are just beautiful, but when you're at the lowest part of the valley sometimes, or the lowest points, you would never ever enjoy those views or the travels back up to the peaks unless you had hit those valleys. So peaks and valleys are going to happen, and that's okay. And when people accept those things, then we can get back to a positive mindset and the balance and the feeding and the whatever you can do today, one foot. the
I
other
love that. And that made me think of, because I do a lot of backpacking, and I like to do, I'm sort of section hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, and so that your talk just made me think about that. And it's like when you're going up and you're climbing and climbing and climbing, and it seems like you've been doing it for like 6 miles, you're just like, I wish I could just finally go down. You get up to the peak and maybe you get a good view or whatever. But I tell you what, when you start going down, you're like, I want to go up again, because going down sucks.
Yeah.
If you've
Yeah.
never hiked for 15 miles climbing up and down mountains, going down sucks just as bad as
Yeah.
going up.
Hard.
Yeah, because your feet are like, your ankles are all twisting now and everything else. So yeah, you can't ever wait for the joy to happen. Like, we all do have troughs, and there's going to be parts of our lives that are just not fun. Let's just be honest. It's just not going to be fun. That's life. But you can't say, I'll be happy when. You just can't
Absolutely.
do it.
Yeah, man, thanks for this podcast is like, I hope everybody out there listening is like, there's been a lot of like really cool times to take notes or like little quotes or things to think about. I know I'm a visual person. Like in my mind, I have such a creative imagination that when someone can paint a picture in my mind and create a good visual, like I'm just, it works for me. And I feel like there's a lot of that in this podcast where whether you're speaking or I'm speaking and sharing a story or an analogy, I hope that everybody listening can apply and just remember to take a breath and apply. On the course, it's I do a lot of teaching about like you're allowed, a couple of seconds. I always say 2 seconds because there's just a lot behind that too. But you're allowed to be upset about a shot, but anything that you let out or amplify or give attention to, that's where the next like movement or scenario of the next action comes from. So if you're going to be outward loud with your voice about being upset about something that didn't go your way, you've like amplified the energy that goes into the next action not being that positive. So if you can kind of keep inside of yourself like anger or sadness or upset or PO'd about a shot level, if first of all the first step is keeping it inside, and then if you can just kind of breathe through it, again, we're allowed to be upset about it for a second, but the quicker we can get through the thought and think about the next thing, the better and the higher energy and the better chances are that our successes are going to be good for whatever's in front of us. And that's that whole thing, Zen disc golf, and then like disc golf is life, life is disc golf. It always brings me back to either in around whatever I was screwing up on. If I can find the like lesson, it's probably what needs a little more spotlight attention in Zoe's actual life, whether it be my personal life or my work professional director Zoe life. What's going on the course probably translates over here. And then same thing with what's going on over here probably translates over here. So use your energies and use your patterns to like propel you. Don't let it weigh you down. And then only let things outside of you, like vocally or energetically, that are positive, because those are facts that are just gonna bring you to the next thing. If you let out negative, it amplifies negative. If you let out positive, it amplifies positive. We've all gone through that.
That's very true. And there's been psychological studies on that, because psychologists wanted to know about venting. Is venting really a good thing? And to a certain extent, it can be. But once you go, it's like a peak. It's like once you go over that peak of you vented too long, now it is, like you just said, absolutely detrimental. And it is about timing. Like when you're saying, like when you're getting ready to, um, for like putting or whatever, hold on to it, get upset about it after the round. Don't get upset about it right now, because when you go back to get upset about it after the round, you may not even remember.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the quicker you can give everything to the next shot, what's the most important shot, the next one. I love when people say that. It's pretty cute. But
Yeah.
really, I just think that it's directing your energy on what's next. The quicker you can do that, especially on the course, but on
I
the
really
course.
like your tip from your in the bag to carry the minis that are special to you. And you have the mini with you and Paige
Uh-huh. And I
and
still carry it. Yep.
Dustin. And so I was just thinking about it just a second ago. That helps on two different sides of the putt that are both important. First, putting it down, and it kind of centers you and getting ready to, for your nerves. And then if you don't cash in, when you go down to pick it up, you're seeing it again, and I would imagine that brings some level of comfort as well.
Still have your friends at the end of the day, still have your family and friends, and like the things that make you smile. And disc golf should always make you smile, even when it's not what you wanted. Like, you still got the game of disc golf to play. There's always going to be another round. It's funny, I've always played like a little bit faster paced sports, or like more like, so I was a volleyball player, a swimmer, a long distance runner, and then I got into snowboarding pretty heavy almost around the same time as disc golf. But I've always been into just, more fast paced sports. And my dad and some of my best friends that don't play, for lifelong friends, have been like, man, Zoe, it's really funny that you picked up this disc golf thing, because it's so slow, and you're just so like Tigger, bouncing everywhere, and you just are so fast paced. How do you do it? And I was like, man, that's a pretty easy answer for me. No round will ever go the same, and no shot will ever go the same. And you can play the same course every day. You can have something close, but you'll never ever have the same. And the goals for perfecting a drive or perfecting a putt are always going to be the same, but you'll never have them the same. So it's like just like a new storybook every day, and it's infinite. So, like, it's funny that I come back
all
to
infinite.
Yeah, it's funny. Side story, and I think Alan knows this from when I first got on the team, but when I was little, like second grade, I learned how to draw the infinity symbol, the lazy 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of obsessed with it back then. And I loved learning how to spell the word infinity. But the reason why I loved those symbols in the word was because of the meaning. And my mom always called me a little infinite ball of energy. And whether she liked it or not, like, she always told me no one would ever be able to keep up with me, and what a neat thing I was blessed with, this infinite energy. So all these years later, being on the team, it's like, wow, if only there would have been like some sort of old camcorder at the time recording little Zoe like talking about being infinity, and listening to my mommy talking to me about infinite energy. It's like, it's just so perfect. But again, relating it back to like disc golf is it's never ever going to be the same. There's infinite options, possibilities, scores, rounds. It's just like addicting.
Absolutely. And we can tell the energy from you, and I'm loving the energy in this podcast, by the way. But when we watch you on, on YouTube and during your tournaments, you carry that same smile with you, and that energy, we can hear it. And I think that's a really good segue to a question I wanted to ask you earlier, but I hope we can go over it now, which is your meditative routine, because you brought it up and you mentioned it, and I'd love to hear about what you're doing and how that kind of balances out that energy.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little creature of habit in some ways, and I really like having a schedule, because then I can check off all the boxes, and it's just clean, and I can always try to do better than what I've got on paper or scheduled for myself. So when it comes to a rhythm and a routine, in disc golf, if you have like a quick few set of steps, and I always say 6 steps for my drive, and then I think it's 8 steps for my putt. But if you have like a quick checklist that has just become like second nature to go through, then you don't have to have you actually won't have, it'll eliminate time for worry, and to give focus on anything that you might not want to think about. So once we can first eliminate room for any other thoughts except for what we want, then we can enter into our rhythm and routine. And our rhythm and routine is different on the tee box than it is on the putting green. And so I guess really quickly, I'll just talk about the tee box. Okay.
Sure.
If you, whether you know the course or not, the very first thing that must be done, or that I plan to do, is assess the fairway and assess the line and assess like what it is I'm trying to pull off. So if you know the course, you're just going to like instantly pick up a disc. Once you have the tool in hand, that's where everything starts. Okay, I have my tool, I have my intention. Then you look at the line that you're planning to throw, and you set your body up in a way that's going to allow you to throw it. So now we've gone from tool, hopeful thought, let's get set up there. If you take a run up on a tee pad, you want to be able to run up your angle. If you're standing still, sidearm or backhand, standing still, then you're just going to obviously be transferring your weight from backward to forward on the line that you've picked, not towards the basket, the line that you've picked. So when you're running up it, you'd run up the line that you picked. So now we've got our tool, our thought, our intention, and our body is ready to like transfer our weight and our energy. And that's what disc golf is. And then from there, it's actually, like a last minute breath, let it all out. And then you get to go for each thing you just set up. So you had the tool, you got the spot. We now have our physical body like prepped, planned, and ready to transfer the weight. And now we just get to execute it. And it doesn't matter what happens after that on a drive. We can always deal from wherever, whether we were center cut, textbook, wrote the whole definition of the shot, or we're way off the fairway, unlucky kick, missed the mando. You're scrambling. You can always deal with wherever you just landed, whether the result's good or bad. The whole goal is that you just set yourself up with everything you want out of it, and then you just believe in going for it. All you can do in anything is try your hardest. All you can do in anything is try your hardest. And if you're giving less than that effort, then you honestly can't look in the mirror and say you've done your best. Let's talk about that. I'm worried about missing this mando. Well, there goes, I call them thought bricks, and you only get 10 bricks for 100% of all your thoughts. And so if I'm worried about a mando or water or what I don't want to have happen, I probably just divvied out at least 30 or 40 thought bricks or big bricks. And I only have this much left. It's getting less and less and less on what I was just going to try to do my best. So a lot of times in lessons, I'll ask people, did you try your hardest there? Did you just assess yourself? Tell me, well, I was really worried about, okay, well, then you didn't give it 100% effort. And so until we are all focused in exactly what we want to produce, it's going to be really tough to work out your own rhythm and routine that would be something like mine. We have to give up any other thoughts that would come in until we're ready to commit to what we want. And then we can set ourselves up to do that. And then on the putting green, it's pretty similar.
Let me just say this. I've always said worry is praying for what you don't want.
Oh yeah. Nobody should be doing that. So, and then on the putting green, it's really similar. Again, you're always planning to make the putt. On the putting green, you're always planning to make the putt. And there's always that like teeny tiny percentage of, unless there's a tree in front of you and there's no shot, okay, then you're going to plan to be right under the basket. So you still have a plan, but you're always planning to make that perfect putt. So from there, it's just from your feet to your head, instead of from like the tool you used on the tee box to getting your body in position to perform it. It's just from your feet to your head. Straddle putting or track stance, off stance putting applies the same. You've got your putter in your hand. We know what we want. Here's the checklist. Can my feet manage my weight balance? Check your feet. Are my knees bendy? Is my posture good? Okay, so that just took care of the core in the middle. And then out my eyeballs, I'm looking at where I want, and I my 0 point focus, for me, it's in the middle of the pole. For other people, it's a chain link. Both are correct, but you have to have a 0 point of focus. You can't look at the entire basket.
Right.
And then what you can do is try your hardest. If you're thinking about the way your finger is gripped around this or the hammer and where you're starting to hammer, all these other extra factors that people let themselves stress out, or like when my leg is kicking up, well, then there's no way you can tell me you just gave 100% of your focus, or you had a very good rhythm and routine to your putt, because you had all these other things that you were thinking about. Even if it was on your own body, you have a checklist and you get comfortable in all of them. And then it comes out your eyeballs last. And then you release the shot and you try your hardest. And that's what you do. And nothing else. The wind, you've already made these decisions before you set your feet on what you're feeling and what your atmosphere, what your distance is. So there's other coaching for like how to putt farther and how to produce more spin. But when we're talking about a rhythm and a routine, it's really basing yourself with believing that you want it, setting your body from the ground up, and then just actually doing it and believing in it.
Wow. Perfect. And this actually brings me back to a conversation I had with Vanessa Van Dyke, and hers is very similar. She didn't go as in depth, but she told me about her key steps when she was on the on the putting green as well. And she said, I can't remember what she said. Then I have the last word is terminate or something crazy like that. I'm sure she thinks it. I can't remember if that's what it was. Probably not, but in my head, that's what it is.
Oh, that's super cool. It was execute,
Attack.
terminate, attack.
That's
Yeah.
what it was. Execute. I don't know why terminate, but execute.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I usually say literally, because I can now, I'm the best putter in the world. And then I do it. But before I won the World Putting Championships, I told myself, you can do it. I'm the best putter in the world. I'm the best putter in the world. Like, because I wanted to be one of the best putters in the world. And then it became a title without like a super focus to win that world title. But then it happened. I created what I wanted and I did it, you know. I even said that specific thing without wanting the World Putting Championships title. And it happened.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the secret. Like Oprah endorsed that book, you know? Yeah. So anyway.
Yep. That's wonderful. Well, Zoe, I love this podcast.
Me too. I can't wait for you to help share it. And for everyone out there, I want to say keep listening to this podcast. I think I'm certainly pretty far behind it, and the people that I affiliate with are. And thanks for inviting me on, Pat, and for sharing some of those details. If I can come back on, there will be a lot of other topics and other sponsors or partners that I would love to highlight and why they're a part of my life to teach the public about other things on the course, you know, from the comfort of what's in your bag to what bag you're carrying to the health aspects as to why you're carrying it. I would love to come back on those things. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
This has been absolutely wonderful. Please come back on. So how can people find out more about Uplay and support you?
Thank you. Yeah, this is really important, you guys, because it's all really just happening and exploding kind of overnight and over the 2021's plan of action to teach. Please, there's minimal content now. Watch for the releases, but get on Uplay Disc Golf, the letter U, Uplay Disc Golf's YouTube channel. Please become a subscriber because there's a lot of formats and plans of lessons in video format coming out that way, which is what we've, you know, video coaching and is the new way to go. So get on Uplay Disc Golf's YouTube. Check out the Instagram and Facebook for announcements. We've got really fun, like happy thoughts on there and fuzzy worms about teaching as well. So there's nothing but smiles involved if you like us on the social media handles. And then for me personally, I would say follow me on Instagram because I do a lot of crossing over of what I do with Uplay and then my own adventure. And so if you guys will be so kind as to follow me on Instagram, I actually don't even post on there at all unless it's something wonderful from my heart. So I would imagine I could say I'm giving you a gift when I'm giving a post because I don't have time to do anything else on there. So please follow me and get a smile or two every time you check out my post.
Wonderful. And John Bongiorno was right. This was great. So John, all right. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you everybody for listening. Until next time, keep throwing.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening to this podcast. I hope you got something that you can place in your toolbox or your disc golf bag. I look forward to having Zoe back on in the future and discussing many of the facets of growing our sport, beginning with coaching and instruction of our youth. For more on Uplay, head on over to uplaydiscgolf.com and don't forget to follow them and Zoe on all social media platforms. As always, this podcast is sponsored by yours truly. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, head on over to zendiscgolf.com and check out my books and apparel. Also, I can't tell you how much positive book reviews and podcast reviews go to keeping this show growing. If you like what you're reading or hearing, please leave a positive review and help keep this podcast going strong. Love and gratitude to all of you. See you next time.